So, how far reaching is this attempt to influence our children with gender identity politics? And could it be that even medical professionals, those who have been trained in medical science, could possibly be buying into all this? Well, I know of one in particular who has. Let's get into this. Hey, welcome back to Enough with the Crazy. You know, with the abundant media coverage of conservative boycotts against corporations that seemingly are attempting to influence our children with the LGBTQ plus message of gender identity ideology, I find myself wondering just how far reaching this attempt really is. I also realize that many just aren't aware of that which defines what a quote unquote ideology is, and especially in how dangerous it can be. So I wanted to go through this opinion article from the Washington Examiner, written by Christopher Tremogli, concerning a practicing doctor and assistant professor of pediatrics at Albert Einstein College of Medicine, and how she advocates that a parent should begin adopting gender ideology, quote unquote, before birth. It's a great article that reveals just what it is that we're facing in this battle to protect our children from the harm this ideology would cause them. Now, again, as a disclaimer, I don't have a problem with the person choosing to be homosexual. I mean, this is America. You're free to live the life you want to live, as long as it's legal. But when you purposely attempt to create confusion in our children as they develop within the natural course of their biological gender, just to sway them to becoming homosexual, then we're going to bump heads. So, before we get into the article, I think it's prudent to first look into the definition of what ideology is. Now, according to the dictionary, ideology is defined as one, a system of idea and ideals, especially one which forms the basis of economic or political theory and policy. Not fact, but theory. Two, the science of ideas, not facts, ideas, the study of their origin and nature. Visionary speculation, especially of a quote unquote unrealistic or idealistic nature. You see, these are these are things that are just not proven by science. These are just they're a person's own idea about what they want to believe in. Three, it also means the content or manner of thinking that is characteristic or important to an individual, group, culture, or system. It often refers to political, economic, or religious theories and aims that are not purely based on evidence. It can be used in a positive or negative way depending on the perspective of the speaker or writer. So you see, it clearly tells you that it is the thinking of an individual or a group or a culture or a system, and it is not purely based on evidence. For the most part, an ideology is based on speculation. It is a term that has come to be identified as any deliberate distortion of scientific facts or theories for purposes that are deemed politically or socially desirable. And I think that just says enough, right? Because that's exactly what we're facing right now, is that this is a deliberate distortion of scientific facts. Now, with this said, regardless of what we're being expected to believe from our left wing politicians and gender identity activists, it is abundantly clear that this ideology is not based in science. It is the direct result of certain people attempting to create a belief system that is not based in truth for the sole purpose of imposing their own belief system in our society. Now, that doesn't take away from them being able to live the life that they want to believe is true. What it does do, however, is create in those of us who accept truth the understanding of our need to resist the efforts to deceive us or our children from believing in what is proven scientific truth concerning gender identity. And that is a fight we have to take on every time, every day. But why? Why is this fight so important? Well, after all, so many gender activists would maybe say, hey, what's the harm? Well, let's discuss that. Is there a significant danger in following a false ideology? Shall we talk about Jim Jones, in which the History Channel says this? In 1975, Reverend Jim Jones, the religious cult leader and civil rights activist, hinted at things to come. He says, quote unquote, I love socialism and I'm willing to die to bring it about. But if I did, I'd take 1,000 with me. Now, this he said during a sermon at his People's Temple Church in San Francisco. 2 years later, on November 18th, 1978, those words became reality when more than 900 people, one-third of them children, died during what would be known as the Jonestown Massacre, one of the worst mass killings in American history. He promised them a paradise with 70-degree temperatures, fertile, ample land to grow food, but it was a lie. It was miserably hot, had a ton of mosquitoes. It was so bad that many people had wanted to escape it. But instead, he caused a mass suicide of 900 followers that included approximately 300 children. He told them his ideology, and they bought into it. How about Hitler and the Youth Corps? This is a portion of an article also taken from the History Channel titled, How the Hitler Youth Turned a Generation of Kids into Nazis. And here's what it says. By 1939, over 90% of German children were part of the Hitler Youth Organization. For the Nazis, the group had other benefits. Not only did it allow the Third Reich to indoctrinate children at their most impressionable, to indoctrinate their children when they were at their most impressionable, but it let the Nazis remove them from the influence of their parents, some of whom opposed the regime. The Nazi Party knew that families, private cohesive groups, not usually under political sway, were an obstacle to their goals. The Hitler Youth was a way to get Hitler's ideology into the family unit, and some members of the Hitler Youth even denounced their parents when they behaved in ways not approved of by the Reich. Tell me you don't hear any of the very same things happening in our schools today. Teachers are encouraged to not inform parents if their child has changed gender identity. Children are being indoctrinated with an abundance of LGBTQ materials to create a confusion within them so that they could be swayed into embracing said lifestyle. Our left-wing politicians are promoting this anti-parent agenda just so that this ideology can progress. Because like Hitler, they know that parents are the obstacle to instilling their ideology upon our kids. So yes, there is a definite danger to promoting this false ideology. Now, with this defined and exposed, one would think that at the very least, those who are entrusted with the medical care of our children would rely more so upon the proven science rather than the ideology. Unfortunately, that is not always the case now. More and more, I'm hearing about medical professionals who are promoting this ideology to their patients, and in this particular article, you'll see one such example. So, let's get to it. Medical professor claims gender identity starts as young as 18 months. Parents must start embracing the ideals and values of radical gender ideology, according to a practicing physician and medical professor. And refusing to do so could harm children in the long run. These are the medical recommendations from Dr. Lauren Roth, and it's just the latest in a long line of attempts to normalize gender ideology as a legitimate part of human development. It's not, and anyone arguing otherwise is an agenda-driven propagandist. Roth claimed that children start to identify their gender identity as young as 18 months old. She advocated parents adopting gender ideology before birth or even before, and lambasted using the colors of pink and blue by parents as putting expectations on a baby. Her statements read like the plot of a deranged science fiction movie instead of sophisticated insight from an accomplished medical professional. Toddlers start to notice physical differences and develop gender identity as early as 18 months to 2 years. They might begin talking about gender, playing dress up, having these established gender roles as early as age 3 or 4, Roth said. This is incredible, to think that this is an educated physician. I remember my kids at 3 or 4, and all these guys can think about was where they were going to get their next cookie, let alone be able to discuss established gender roles. It's unbelievable. If your child was assigned male at birth and one day they tell you, quote, I want to wear a pink sparkly dress, unquote, instead of saying what a lot of people say, boys don't wear dresses, girls just do, how about, say something like, tell me more about why you want to wear a dress today? Hey, I'm not a trained physician. I'm definitely not educated at that level. However, I do know this. I know that according to science, children are not assigned gender at birth. Birth reveals gender. And I think it's astounding that a trained physician doesn't seem to know the difference in that. I really think we need to try stop making everything pink and blue and also avoid this huge gender reveal party. It's okay to be excited when you find out that your baby's a specific sex, Roth said. You know, People have dreams about what they want their families to be, but it's really important not to push all those expectations on your child. Well, let's see, let's not push those expectations on them, huh? Well, how about the expectations about, oh, I don't know, stop punching your sister in the eye, or come home at your curfew time, or don't call your mother that bad name, or do your chores, or stop stealing from the store? I mean, what about all those expectations that we as parents put on our children? Are you saying those are bad as well and harmful? But this is utterly ridiculous, he goes on to say. Horrible advice, and indicative of how science has become corrupted to advance left wing socio political and cultural agendas. And, not to mention, if boys wanted to wear quote unquote pink sparkly dresses at a young age, it would contradict what Roth claimed about children realizing their gender identity. Parents should rightfully correct their children about boys not wearing dresses and not listen to anything this doctor advised. Roth is an assistant professor of pediatrics at Albert Einstein College of Medicine and an attending physician in the Division of Academic General Pediatrics at the Children's Hospital at Montefiore, according to the Albert Einstein College of Medicine website. Unsurprisingly, she's also a staunch advocate of LGBT issues. Conducted earlier Conducted research in gender transition care and LGBT health, and co-chair of the LGBTQ Health and Wellbeing Special Interest Group of the Academic Pediatric Association, Fox News reported. Roth's job functions includes bringing standardized training to future pediatricians, essentially brainwashing future doctors to agree with her radical beliefs. It's why she makes such absurd statements and tries to regularize her radical ideas regarding young children and gender identity. Like, this is a normal thing, and we have to understand that gender is on a spectrum. There's not just men and women, Roth said when discussing gender ideology. Sometimes gender identity matches the chromosomes or the genitals that they were born with, but sometimes it doesn't. But this is not a normal thing. It's a mental irregularity. Her comments demonstrate how radical gender ideology has gained prominence in the medical and scientific communities. Her remarks and quote unquote medical recommendations are predicated on ideology, not legitimate research and science. And that's what we were talking about early in the definition of ideology and how that can turn into a dangerous thing for people. There's no legitimate evidence or bias for Roth's claims. Trying to legitimize such things as quote unquote science facilitates acceptance in mainstream society, her ultimate objective. Gender transition care and normalizing transgenderism in young children is modern day lichen kosum. Lichen kosum. Roth is weaponizing her credentials to advance her personal views as actual settled medical science in order to legitimize these things. Her comments embody everything wrong with society today and the dangers associated with the radical fanaticism of gender ideology. Children don't choose their gender, they are born a gender. Claiming otherwise is enabling abnormal mental behavior. And look, This guy just said it brilliantly. Okay. Um, when you are in the field of medicine and you are entrusted with the care of your patients, I believe it goes without saying that you should rely solely upon established medical science. And what has happened with this indoctrination of this gender ideology in our society is that our politicians have taken a hold of it, and they have for the only reason of gaining more votes. And now, however, it's inundating itself into the medical field, which is frightening beyond description. To think that you now, as a average American parent, have to worry about whether or not your pediatrician or your family doctor is pushing gender ideology in your children. I mean, that's unconscionable. And yet, this is what many are having to deal with today. So, ideology that is based on a person's choice in their belief system leads to dangerous things. And that's what's happening with these children. As many of these children are becoming indoctrinated with these things, and then they're getting confused and they're growing up and they're making lifelong decisions that will harm them for the rest of their lives because of it. They are, taking testosterone, or they are taking estrogen, or they are having, a gender affirming surgery, things that can't be undone for the most part. So listen, this fight has to continue. We have to stay focused on the goal, which is to make sure that the people understand, if you choose to be homosexual, by all means, this is America, the land of the free. Do your thing. But to try to force your ideology in such a way as to confuse children is causing them harm. And we have to continue to make the stand that that simply cannot happen. So let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section. As usual, if you enjoy this type of content, I humbly request that you would be so kind as to share it with others, as that definitely will help the channel to grow. Also, please don't forget to hit that like button, press the subscribe button, and hit that notification bell to be notified of any and all upcoming videos. Hey, as always, I want to say thanks for taking the time to listen. Until next time,